So welcome back to my channel. This is Gamer Dom and a look at these things. These are a new set of rules from Osprey Games called Rebel and Patriots. Wargaming rules for North American colonies to Civil War. Interesting set of rules, and I've seen quite a few people already starting to look at it. They are written by Leck and Mercy, who have done similar rules. Pikeman's Lament was one, and Men Who Would Be Kings, Lion Rampant, various other sets of rules. And really these are kind of company level rules, sort of skirmish. Yeah, you say skirmish rules, covering all the different periods across action in North America. So you've got Indian Wars, French Indian Wars, you've got American War of Independence, you've got Northwest Indian Wars, 1785 to 95, Mexican War of Independence, the War of 1812. What else we got in here? These are army lists that they propose for you. Texas Revolution, if you want to do the Animo. Canadian Patriots Revolution, the Mexican-American Wars, Cortina War, and then ultimately the American Civil War. And there's also, actually I've noted, Mexican Adventure, French Intervention in Mexico, and even down to Finan raids. So goes from, what's that, 18, sort of earliest period, 1754 through to 1871. So quite a long period of history, but all very similar kind of war styles. And as you'd expect with Osprey books, full of lovely images. Their books are always so well produced. And really these are, I'll say, simple company size rules. I've had the pleasure of playing with them once, so this is my impression of them after one game, and I will try and intersperse my comments with some footage from the game we played. And we played a club game last Friday at the Farnborough Wargaming Club, and there were 5 of us playing, 4 playing and 1 umpiring. Alec, who's had the rules slightly longer than the rest of us and played a few more games, was umpiring, and the rest of us were playing. And maybe it was a little bit too big because we had 2 24-point armies. These things are 2 against 2 basically, and a sort of a scenario based on what's in this book. Right. So, and really these rules are designed for, I guess, really one 24-point army. There were 4 of us, we thought we'd try it out. And we're big into American War of Independence, also like American Civil War at the club. And traditionally, American War of Independence, we've played, if it's large scale, black powder, and sharp practice for smaller scale. But sharp practice can be a little bit complicated at times, particularly if you don't play it very often, or if players have never played it. There's a lot of nuances around the rules that take a little bit of time to get the hang of. And we also play, Musket Tomahawks, which is a good set of rules as well. But we wanted to try these out because these are, on the face of it, very simple rules. Not on the face of it, they absolutely are. So if you look at this, from page, where the rules actually start, that's all intro stuff, all intro. So basically rules start on page 7 and run through to 36. So 29 pages is all you need to play these rules, and they're very, very simplistic. If I have a criticism of them, probably too simplistic, but we'll get onto that in a second. So the idea is the idea is that you have a company of troops relevant to your own, whatever the period is you've chosen. You'll see that, where I was just showing you before, there's a whole load of suggested unit sizes here. So American War of Independence, here we go. Suggested British Army is 3 3 units of line, which are each 4 points each, 1 light infantry at 6 points, 1 shock at 6 points. They're grenadiers or Highlanders. Whereas the militia, American militia, 4 units of green line at 3 points, but they're militia, 1 green timid line infantry, but a good shot, so riflemen, mounted skirmishers, good shots, and a skirmisher unit of minutemen at 2 points. So you pick your force of 24 points, and you can upgrade things according to this chart here. So look at this. This is the standard infantry unit. It is 12 models. Has a firing ability of 5+ and 18 range, fighting ability of 6. It gets a first fire rule, so if you fire for the first time or fight for the first time, you get +1 on that, so that would be a 4+. And it can also form close order, which is a very useful tool, as I found out in the game we played. Then you can moderate it depending on how you want, so you can make them green, which basically brings their discipline down to -1 from 0, which is important for disorder and so forth. You can have veterans, which are +1. Poor shots, so as you'd expect, they go from a 5+ to a 6. Good shots go the other way, 4+ instead of 5+. Timid, you only fight with half your dice. Aggressive, you kill on instead of a 6, it becomes 5+. Small unit means you die quicker, basically. A large unit, the converse. So you can upgrade or downgrade. Now this was one of the problems I had with this rule set. So we just dived in, we just read a couple of us only just read the rules. So Alec had played a couple of games, and as a result we just tried different things, and what we found is that certain upgrades to these are very, very powerful. For instance, the light infantry, if you make them good shots, they are really, really hard to kill and overly powerful, particularly because light infantry can form skirmish. So that makes them much harder to hit. Plus they shoot better. So for a points value of, 6 points for a unit, upgrade them to good shot is another 2 points, 8 points. They're very, very powerful. However, that said, a standard line unit is only 4 points, so you could have 2 line for one light. But we found that the impact of shooting was very, very marked in this game. I don't know, it's just the one game we played, obviously, but shooting seemed to have an inordinate impact on the game, much higher than I would have expected for this kind of period. Right, so that lot are going to fire it there. So I get 12 dice. Yep. Oh, I need to activate them first, don't I?
Order, please.
Yeah. They do. 2, 4,
shot to bits.
6, 8, 10, 12. So it's
Yep.
So activate these guys.
Yeah, you're lucky.
Yeah, I love it.
Just about.
Blast those guys off the hill.
Yeah, and I'm firing at them as well.
So
12 dice.
12 dice. We can have 24 dice to hit.
5 hits because it's long range.
I might see if he kills them all, I might not bother. I'll kill the Indian instead.
Normally 3, but because they're in skirmish, 5's to hit.
And that's it.
2.
You're one. But it doesn't matter if 2 units fire, loads of units fire at the same time.
These guys are going to shoot at them.
Right, so 12 dice at those.
Still in.
I'm needing 4s. 5, sorry. 5.
So that's
4 inches.
So that's 4. What these hit?
Got at least one there. Yes, these hit on 4s first.
Yeah, then it's 3.
That was a 5, wasn't it? So it's a man down. Man down.
Why is that?
I shot them there. Oh, actually I went up 1 because I'm in a line. So that's actually
You went up 1
2.
because you're...
So upgrades you have to be really careful with, and I think you've really got to follow the guide at the back here with the army list, because I think that makes it much more realistic. If we just played with British line all being 4 points each and light being 6, just standard, and the American militia same, and then maybe the odd good shots but make them timid, probably would have been more realistic. So be careful with that, is my first thing. So you build your force, but before that you have an officer, and this is one of the fun things I think about these. These rules are designed to fight not sequential as in a campaign battles, but rules that allow you to build a character and build a style and build some personality around your game, because you choose an officer. He starts as a basic level officer, and he commands your unit. Now you can amend your unit according to scenario, according to your will, whatever it is, but the officer, the theory is the officer doesn't change. He starts at a tactical level 0, and basically he then gets some there we go, he gets some traits which can be very good, and they can also be very bad. So for instance, in the game we played, one of our commanders was a drunkard. This fellow likes a drink and is rather erratic. If the officer's unit hasn't yet activated in a turn or has failed to activate, the officer's bonus is 0. So normally officers get +1. Obviously with this guy being drunk, it was a 0. I had an officer which was conversely a relatively good one. Where was it? Go find it. Oh yeah, Fortuna Belli. The gods of war smile at the officer. He may once and again re-roll in its entirety any one set of dice rolled by any player. So we had a situation where some natives I had charged some skirmishers. I invoked that to allow, because the skirmishers evaded, they passed their morale check and evaded, so allowed them to get away from my natives. I therefore invoked this and got him to re-roll the morale check. He probably passed it again, but whatever. So as you go up through battles and as you do heroic things, you move up through the ranks. So you start as a second lieutenant and you move on up to major. If you go beyond to major to a colonel, you then basically leave there and you join a new regiment and you start again. But as each one you go up, you get an extra trait which allows a new re-roll on the chart. Could be good and bad again, which I like. I really like. You also get better tactical value, which is also good. Now an officer has to sit in a unit. He doesn't fight. It isn't like rule systems where, you know, you roll 12 dice and then you get an extra dice because the officer's there. He is purely there effectively to sort of, basically it's his host unit, I think is the simplest way. But he will influence units within 12 inches of him. So that's kind of cool. So you get +1 basically in terms of morale and also command ability, which is good. So I like the officer thing. I think that adds a bit of fun to it, and you can build some personality between your behind your characters. And there's some quite good ones here. Cunning, there's drill instructor, you know, lots of fun things. And of course with that becomes a risk of any wounds or being killed. So when a unit an officer is with gets hit and suffers a casualty, you then need to work out whether he has been hit and roll on the casualty chart.
First, yeah, 5-1.
5-1.
So the favourite nephew. He's the Major General's favourite nephew, you know, always add 1 additional point when mustering his company.
Which again can be pretty fatal, or it can not be. So that's all good and dandy, and I like that. Units, individual units within your company have to stay within 4 inches of each other. So you basically have a figure that's the center point of the unit, and everything has to be 4 inches around it with a 25mm figure. And that's kind of good because it stops you spreading your troops out right across the board. Because you see, one of the things about these rules is firing. The fact that you it doesn't really matter where you are allows you to fire, and that's one of my major peaks of these rules, one's things I don't like. So anyway, enough of that. Let's look at the different troop types. You have Line infantry, which are 12-man units, can be upgraded. Like I said, you've got light infantry units, which are also 12 men, 6 points rather than 4. Again, can be upgraded, but they can also skirmish, which is very powerful. You have shock troops, which are the sort of most aggressive type of units. So they're the grenadiers, the highlanders, that kind of thing. Again, 6 points for 12 figures. You get skirmishers, which are only 2 points at basic and only 6 models. But obviously they can be upgraded as well to make them sharpshooters and so forth, and are quite hard to hit because they're always in skirmish, being skirmishers you'd expect. You have your natives, who I was a bit disappointed by the first game we played. 12 models, 4 points each. I just realised I diddled me. They may use skirmisher action. Okay, so in our game we played they weren't allowed to, so that's interesting. So they should have been able to skirmish, which makes a big difference, because my problem was I got shot to pieces with them, even though I went for a big unit of them. Anyway, by the by, that's us not reading the rules properly. You've got artillery, which I'm not sure about in this kind of scale game, but they're in the game. So you have light, medium and heavy guns, 4 points, 6 points and 8 points, depending on which of those you go for, etc. There's also cavalry, 2 types of cavalry. Light cavalry, which are 6 model units with worth 4 points each, and then shock cavalry, which are 12 figure units, which is quite big for cavalry actually, and cost 6 points each. And as you'd expect, tactically, lights are there for skirmishing and flanking and so forth. Shock are there for the charge to contact. So those are your basic unit types. The game runs on 6-sided dice. You need quite a pile of them. You basically what you do is you start the game with your figures deployed according to the scenario. There's a number of scenarios in the back here, which look interesting, some of them more than others. Scenario, bridge to victory, blah de blah de blah. You can see lots to do. There's a whole range of them, and actually there's a random dicing generator one that you can do, so you can just decide which one you want to play. If you can't decide which one to play, you just dice for it, which is kind of cool as well. So there you go. You can just select according to which scenario you want to play. You deploy your troops. As I say, individual units within the company need to be within 4 inches. The figures need to be within 4 inches of a central figure, which is kind of cool. There's no restrictions on how wide apart your actual company figures need to be, or company units need to be. But bearing in mind, the officer only has a command radius of 12, and he adds 1 to their command roll. Now, to do anything in these rules, you need to activate your unit first. To activate a unit, you roll 2d6, and you need 6 plus to success. 6 plus to do it. Negatives for these rules. They get to a situation where you have a unit that is basically disordered to a point where it can't do anything and has to rally, but you still rally at your morale, so 6 plus. Minus any disorders you've got. So if you've got 2 disorders, that suddenly becomes 4 plus. Sorry, the other way around. So yeah, you need to roll not 6 plus, but 8 plus to succeed in passing, which is quite unlikely. And okay, if you get your officer within 12, that goes up, that becomes 7 plus, but still. It seems to me that to rally a unit, because bear in mind you basically stop still, you're not doing anything, you're just trying to remove the disorder on you. Not 6 plus, but 8 plus to succeed in passing, which is quite unlikely. And okay, if you get your officer within 12, that goes up, that becomes 7 plus, but still. It seems to me that to rally a unit, because bear in mind you basically stop still, you're not doing anything, you're just trying to remove the disorder on you, I think you shouldn't count that disorder a negative against you. It should be on your base morale, because it's pretty debilitating. We had a couple of scenarios in the game we played where units had been basically, as I say, punished by fire, were down to had 2 disorders, which is the worst you can get before it breaks, and you went to rally them, you either failed your rally test, and therefore you just end up sitting there for another turn being blasted yet again, and that's the end of it. Sorry if you can hear scratching around, that's my cat going bananas, don't know why.
Now that so we can shoot at those.
Good.
Or we could move half a move.
Yes, and shoot.
And then we'd still shoot at those.
I hate those guys.
No, I think.
Or we could move a full move and
that might be
those next time.
I think that might be a canny move.
Well, I've only got 1 or 2 moves, haven't we?
Yeah.
So yeah, so that was a little bit frustrating, and you also subtract 1 if you're disordered on your morale check, so on your activation check. So 6+ is normal. If you've got a disorder, it becomes 7+. If you're close order, you get +1 again, so it improves it, and an officer, it also improves it. So again, having an officer and having the ability to form close formation and being in close formation absolutely helps, and is a good thing to do, very much a good thing to do. So that's all cool. If you roll 1 or 6, good thing and bad things happen. So people will be aware of FUBARs and other things in other rule systems. So if you throw 1s when you're trying to activate, there's a number of very nasty things that can happen here. Friendly fire to brown trousers. You lose honor points and blah blah blah. 6 is good things. So rally around the flag, which is an instant rally basically. Fighting cocks basically means you get +1 in your discipline tests, etc, etc. So good things as well as bad.
Another dice.
3. Independent fire. Choose 1 enemy unit on the table. It gets shot at by off-table marksmen.
Oh, for
That's right. Roll 12 dice, hitting on 5+.
movement-wise, infantry, standard infantry, and shock infantry move 6 inches. Lights, skirmishers and natives move 8. Shock cavalry 10. Light cavalry and mounted skirmishers 12. Artillery 4, 2 and 0 depending on what they are. And basically if they're in a sort of either skirmish formation or just not formed up, they can move any direction they like without penalty. Moving through terrain is a nice simple way. If it's difficult or broken ground, it's half speed for the distance you are covering. So if you move up 2 inches and then go into a wood, so for your standard line infantry 6-inch move, your 2 inches is free, and then the remaining 4 is halved, so you'd move basically 4 inches. If you're looking to go over a hedge or a wall or a fence, you have to move up to that obstacle, finish the rest of the turn there, and then cross over without penalty next go, which I think is nice and simple. Works really, really well. So, shooting. So, I have mixed feelings on this one. The way shooting works is that a unit, no matter the size of it, has 12 dice. So if you fire with a unit of line infantry, you get 12 dice. If you fire a unit of 6 skirmishers, you fire with 12 dice. If you moved, so the skirmishers who moved and fired, you lose half those dice. If you have a disorder, you lose half those dice. So it's very simplistic. Now, so that 12 dice is irrelevant of how many figures are left in the unit until it gets to half strength. So if you have 12 figures in a line unit, you get 12 dice. If you have 7, you have 12 dice, which I'm not sure I necessarily agree with. So the way it then works, your 12 dice, you're rolling normal line infantry of 5+ to hit, modified with the other things we talked about, with the sharpshooters, etc, etc, etc. So you roll your dice, and depending on how many hits you get, the number of hits you get is then modified by the situation of the target. So if you are firing at a unit in the open, it's 2 hits, kills 1 model. So for example, I've got 12 line figures firing at another 12 line figures at up to 12 inches. I roll 12 dice and somehow I managed to get 6 hits. 6 divided by 2 means that he would have to remove 3 of those models. So if it becomes long range, so say that unit was firing at another line unit that was at 14 inches, you get 3 to 1. So my 6 hits become 2 kills, not 3. And that's quite nice and simple. If troops are in cover, they get +1 again. So again, that example, firing my 12 dice, getting 6 hits on an enemy line that's at long range but in cover, becomes 4 to 1. So my 6 hits actually becomes 1 kill then. Light infantry, skirmishers and artillery always count open ground as cover from firing. So if you're firing at skirmishers in the open, instead of being 2 to 1, they're 3 to 1. Automatically, if it's long range, they become 4 to 1. So again, that little unit of 6 is much more durable when it's in skirmish. But again, you see the effect that a light infantry unit has because it gets that bonus. That's a big bonus. Hard cover increases it by 2. So, you know, artillery reduces hard cover to cover, so that's kind of cool. So the rules are very simple, but I think one of the things we're probably going to instigate is the fact that we remove, as you lose figures, you lose dice on the firing, because it felt to me that firing was just too strong. What else? Skirmishers, talked about them already, but basically skirmishers have the ability to move at half value in any direction, not charging, but move at any direction and fire as well. So they can fire either at the beginning or at the end of the move. And that works quite well, quite like that. Gives them a huge advantage over line infantry. And really, if you have the choice, take light over line, even though they cost half again in points just for that factor. Close order talked about. That's basically standing shoulder to shoulder. It helps with activation. It helps with morale. It helps with firing, and is a very powerful tool. Worked really nicely. The moment you suffer any kind of casualty, as in figures removed, you do a morale check. A morale check is done like it is with an activation test. So 6+ you need, and minus any disorders you've already got. If you roll 1 and basically if you fail that, you get a disorder marker. And that basically gives you a -1 on activations. It also means any firing is done at half effect. And 2, it means you are broken. 2 disorder markers means you're broken, which has a huge impact. And 3 basically means you rout off the table, never to be seen again. Again, my issue with this, I've talked about it already, is the fact that morale... It seemed to me that rallying these units could get really awkward. You know, you got yourself forward in a good position, you got blasted, got unlucky, couldn't activate, and you're stuck doing nothing, just being blasted again. Now, I guess you could argue that that's kind of historic, but it just felt, excuse me, felt sort of unfair really as a game. You know, if you were unlucky, you just end up sitting there. I'd like to have the mechanic where you could retire and rally back, maybe. That would be good. But there's no option for doing that. If you fail your activation, you don't move anywhere. If you try and rally and fail it, you don't do anything. You don't move anywhere. So that's a bit frustrating. If your unit comes down to half strength, you get a permanent disorder on your unit. So your 12-man line infantry down to 6, you get a permanent disorder, which basically means you're always firing at -1. You're always firing at half strength, and your activations are always at -1 and morale test at -1. Morale test we talked about. that's basically it for the rules. You can see, really, really simple and kind of fun. As I say, I think there's a number of things we're going to instigate as a club if we play these rules further. I mean, I like sharp practice, but it can get very involved at times. I like muskets and tomahawks. I like black powder for the bigger games, but these were kind of fun. I have to say I was a little bit unsure. I think the firepower in them, to me, was too powerful. The ability to charge... Oh, that was the one thing I was going to say. Charging in these rules, so tough. So, to charge a unit, you need to pass your activation. Fair enough. You then roll 2d6. Assuming you've passed, you roll 2d6 and you move that distance. So, you could be, I don't know, 6 inches away from an enemy unit. You pass your activation, decide to charge, roll 3 on your dice, and you don't manage to contact. However, on conversely, you could roll double 6 and move 12 inches. And to me, that was just too variable. Didn't like that at all. I think you ought to at least move your standard move distance and maybe add a d6 on top. And I think that's what we're going to do at the club. So you roll your 6 inches or 8 inches, roll an additional d6, and that's your charge distance. And I think that makes it, gives you some variety, but also makes it fairer and more interesting. What happens to response? So, excuse me, skirmishing troops have the option to evade. What they do is roll their morale check. If they pass it, they are then able to move away at half speed. So it's kind of, you know, again, we had this situation where my natives charged these skirmishers. I passed morale check. I moved forward. I think I rolled 10, I think, if I remember right. A good roll, whatever it was. He then passed his morale check. And because we'd started 6 apart, I never had the chance to catch them because his half move away was much further than my even rolling 10 would ever get me. So I ended up falling short and ended up sitting in the middle of the field and getting blasted, as we've already talked about. Anyway, bitter, yes. But I just felt, again, it's about the feel of the rules. And to me, you know, part of the period, particularly when you got something like natives, is the fact that they did get in amongst each other. They did get bashing each other with tomahawks, rifle butts, and bayonets if they owned them. And I felt that the rules were very, very focused on firepower and less on hand-to-hand. And I'd like to see the balance a little bit replayed. Firepower when you fire is very powerful, can potentially be very powerful, particularly if troops are caught in the open, and particularly if they're regular line troops, which should be the bulk of your force, as opposed to lights or skirmishers who seem overly powerful and able to resist the firepower, particularly if they can get into cover. And particularly if they get upgraded. So again, it goes back to that story. You need to make sure, for my part with these rules, you need to make sure that your army is balanced, that you don't have too many upgrades and too many changes to your standard formations. Otherwise, they just become too powerful and unbalanced. We were playing a scenario where you had to get to a crossroads, and whoever, you know, every turn you were within 3 inches of the crossroads, you got victory points, basically. The problem was the crossroad was on the top of a hill and everything around you could see you, and they tended to just blast you to pieces. So what happened was each unit moved up, got a turn, maybe if they were lucky 2 turns of some victory points, then got blown away, had to pull back or were pushed away, or in some cases routed away, and then another one would go in and try. Now, it just, I don't know, it just felt wrong. To me, everything I read on the period was, you know, firepower was hit and miss at best, and particularly in the early period, the American War of Independence, you know, it was quite hard to hit anybody unless they were point blank range. So I felt the firepower was too strong. But a good set of rules and thoroughly enjoyed. Now let me just take you through some of the amendments we've come up with after I've shown you some footage of the battle we played.
Well, if I stayed there, I definitely
These guys
Yeah,
better
with the
fire
curve.
at them now.
Firing at those boys there. Let's have an order test first, please.
Fair enough.
Oh, nasty. You're skirmishes, aren't you? So 4s.
So 3.
3 hits. You short range?
Yes.
So, yeah. 3 dead, is it?
Yeah.
Actually, no, if I take them.
Yeah, you shoot. You can.
Yeah, you want to take them from that end.
Exactly.
Being tortured off, is that? Yeah, it is.
So they will need to do a test.
-3.
So that's a 3, which is not down. So they just get 1 disorder, yeah.
Yeah. Right. Ordering this lot to move, which they don't.
So some of the rules, the changes that we've looked at as a club, and bear in mind again, I've played 1 game. Most of the club have only played 1 game. Alex played a couple of games, so these are his suggestions primarily. So shout out to him. I'm not taking any credit here. So he's suggesting that the 24 point armies should have limitations on upgrades, which I agree. And he's suggesting only 1 unit of light, line or shock can be upgraded to good shooters, which I think is good idea. And there can only be only 1 unit of skirmishers can be upgraded to sharpshooters. And I think that would help, certainly with the firepower, and something we will try out. Rally tests. So currently, if you've got to pass your test, and you don't do anything, you just end up sitting there. So again, what's the situation arises, you get into you move forward, you take a blast of fire, and you want to rally, but the trouble is you rally and you end up exactly where you were where you got blasted. So funny enough, what happens the next turn, you get blasted again, and then you need to rally, and you never actually move anywhere. So what we agreed is that they should also be able to fall back. And I think that makes more sense and is probably in keeping with the spirit of the rules, of the period rather. Firing. So again, as I discussed, we don't like the fact that if you get 12 shooting dice, irrespective of the size of the unit, until it gets down to half strength. I think that doesn't work for me at all. Also the fact is that the way it works with the rules is you have 1 figure that can see. I know these aren't these are something I'm painting at the moment. So if you got your troops lined up like that, and there's some sort of train blocking the bulk of your unit, all you have to do in the rules is have 1 figure that can see, and they all count as firing. And again, that just seems completely wrong. Conversely, the same is true. If you have 1 figure available to shoot at, it affects the entire unit, and no cover, basically. And to me, that was just far too simplistic. And I think everybody we played with felt exactly the same with that. So we're proposing that the unit fires with as many figures it has that are in range and also in line of sight. Therefore, in that situation where that 1 figure is the only thing that can see, you just get 1 dice. Simples. Skirmishers count double, which again I think it makes sense. So if a unit has 7 line but only 4 are in range, then you can only shoot with those 4. If it's skirmishers, if 4 out of the 6 can shoot, then you get 8 shots. I think that's very, very simple. Works for me beautifully. So the other area we're looking at is charges. Some suggestions this needs to change, and I think it does, because at the moment it's so vague. It's you can move quite a long distance or virtually nothing at all. So we're looking at maybe adding rolling a dice and adding 6 to the charge distance, but we need to work through how that would work. But I think that would be much more in keeping again with the period and allow a bit more ability to get in amongst it. If you successfully, it just felt like you were being double penalised. You had the toughness of actually passing an activation test. Having done that, you then had to be lucky with your roll to actually make contact, and to me that was too much. We thought about the evade rules. I personally didn't think that was too difficult. Alec was suggesting that maybe we have a -1 on the activation on the evade thing. evade reaction, but to me, I didn't see it as a big problem. I was the only one of the few people, I think, who suffered from evading troops. I think they should be able to evade. It's, you know, it's a proper valid tactic for skirmishers. They didn't want to get charged, so they would run away. So I didn't think -1 was necessary. I think if you change the actual charging, that works quite well for me. So anyway, there were a few suggestions there, but overall, kind of fun set of rules. Simple. You can buy these on Amazon for about £9, I think they are. Your units are, what do you got, 12, 24. You're probably talking about 50 or 60 figures per side, which is quite manageable. And it's a nice, easy change from your standard skirmish game. Is it going to replace, for me, things like sharp practice? No. I still prefer those rules. I love those rules and they're great fun to play. However, they are very involved and take a bit of learning, and for newer players, if you want a rule set that's quite easy to play, players who have seldom played the game, played this period at all, and don't have experience of sharp practice or any other rule set, these are really quick and simple to pick up. If you want a rule set to play with your, you know, your sibling, your boy, your son or daughter that you want to get into wargaming, I think these are really fun. A nice set of rules, but I think they do need a little bit of refinement and amendments because they're far from perfect, but fun nonetheless. So they sort of get a sort of thumbs up from me, if that makes sense. But we'll try them again, and maybe I'll try and do a full battle report next time. Anyway, hope you found that useful and interesting. Let me know if you've played these rules, Rebels and Patriots, what your feelings are. I've seen a few people have picked them up. I've seen a few videos about them, a few blogs about them, and they certainly seem to be getting a bit of interest. And you know, I think any kind of Osprey rules do, because they're generally pretty well done. And I think these are no different. I just think they're a little bit too simple for the real geeky wargamer in me, but fun nonetheless. Anyway, hope you found it useful and interesting. If you did, please give the video a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. In the meantime, enjoy your games, have fun. May dice roll high or low depending on what they need. And I'll see you again soon. It's Gamer Dom signing out.